Month is next? He's like March, April.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The mayor has called the meeting to order. Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Here.
Councilmember De La Cruz.
Here.
Councilmember Gross.
Here.
Mayor Lindsay.
Here.
Councilmember McCormick.
Here.
Councilmember Moss.
Here.
Councilmember Petros.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Mayor. If we may please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, I'm sorry. I believe we don't have anybody here from the Key Biscayne Presbyterian Church. If we may go to the next item, brief comments by council.
Sure, just a brief comment about, we are in the middle of the legislative session up in Tallahassee. There are a lot of things going on. Our biggest concern, which is one of our legislative priorities, the preemption issues are coming up fast and furious. I've been sending out little notices for people to take action if they deem appropriate. Folks, we need to pay attention. There's just some craziness going on in Tallahassee in terms of really stripping local governments like Key Biscayne that incorporated 26 years ago power to address, to represent its constituents and to fix potholes and trim trees and regulate, vendors like the dockless bicycles. It is a full assault, and we really should be concerned. And residents, I invite you to participate as well, because it is people in Tallahassee who have absolutely no connection to Key Biscayne or South Florida for that matter, wanting the tax dollars and not caring what the policies are, but just making deals with lobbyists. Yes.
As long as we're on this, year after year, we're optimistic that what we consider to be zaniness in Tallahassee will die an ignoble death. This year feels a little different.
Yep, I agree.
And I think I want to write a letter to the speaker for us to take a position on preemption, and that the hypocrisy, in my view, what underlies preemption. I'd like to do that so that we don't wake up regretting that we did.
Well, Frank, my challenge is he retaliates. He retaliates to his fellow, representatives. He's not a good guy, and I'm not sure that that's a good idea, frankly.
I think I wonder if the mass soccer team would tell us that you deal with a bully by punching him in the nose.
Let me ask you, what is his constituents? I mean, they're okay with this?
A lot of these issues are for the urban areas that have money. And if he's in a suburban area or in a rural, it just doesn't really affect, it doesn't affect the majority of the people up on the dais voting.
But the people who are voting, almost everybody within the urban areas are going to be against this no matter what? Or some of them are going for it because they're pressured politically?
Some of them are going forward because they're pressured politically and with donations. I mean, if you see the breakdowns of who's giving for, for campaigns, it tells a story.
Because I was just wondering, is there any pressure that we can put in those constituents in those areas of...
This is all in the
what your
legislature.
representative is doing?
It is all, yeah.
Everybody in Florida, the League of Cities, the League of Counties, the planning councils, everybody thinks right on this issue except for the legislature, principally the House. The reason I use the word hypocrisy is because I think when it all boils down, they don't like what local governments do. It's not us. They don't like what cities do generally.
But what baffles me in any community that has any local government, why the people who vote for these representatives and these senators would be okay with this. I mean, they would not vote for these people anymore if they know exactly what they're trying to do.
I think this is one of those disconnects between democracy and call it civics. I don't know anybody traveling around the state that thinks there's the slightest bit of sense in any of this, except people in the House. So we always ask ourselves the question, how can we be most effective? And we do all the same things, all of which I think are prudent and right. This year, I feel like I want to communicate.
Again, if we were dealing with irrational group that wasn't retaliatory, I'd say, sure, let's have a healthy dialogue. Let's raise the question. But from what I'm seeing and how he's retaliating and lashing out against his colleagues, it's not worth it.
Well, it's never going to change.
How is he going to retaliate against us?
Line items, legislative. We have things that we are asked. We're blackballed.
Well,
A whole group of voters up there in the legislature that would have to pass that.
let's bring this back. Let's talk about it sometime.
Maybe we should discuss it with our state senator and our state representative and see what they think might be the best action to take as well.
I'll tell you.
All of the people that speak for us statewide all say the same thing. It's consistent with our view. It hasn't died yet. Last year, this time, it had already died. This year, it hadn't died yet, so we get more nervous.
So my conversations I've had with our representatives of it's crazy, it's not good, we're doing the best we can. And they are, and we are very well represented. Yes.
I couldn't answer someone's question today about how our hosting of the League of Cities went. Did anybody go? I couldn't go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was great.
Great. Okay,
nice.
I can answer the question.
I think you might have been the only one that wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Missed you.
I never miss, but I missed this time.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Thanks.
I thought you were there.
spirit, in spirit.
I'm quiet.
You can't mistake when Frank is or
I'm
isn't
quiet.
over here.
No, they don't let him talk there.
With that, Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item under special presentation, Mass Academy Boys Soccer Team.
Welcome, come to the podium. Do we have a spokesperson who's going to explain to everyone? And you're going to have to go to the microphone, please. Yes, just tell us why you're here. And we are very proud of you, but tell us again.
I mean, we're here because we got invited.
I'm sorry, if you can state your name, please.
My name is Valentin Sabela, and yeah, we got invited.
Are you Roberto's son?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we won our first trophy ever with our school. Mass, the guys' soccer team, had never won a trophy before, and the GMAC tournament was the first one we won, and then we ended up as runner-ups in our district this year, and those were our two accomplishments, pretty much.
Congratulations. We're very proud of you all.
That's great.
Thank you.
And you have a trophy to show us. That's 2 trophies. Excellent.
Oh, very nice.
Congratulations. Yeah, they're for you. You don't have to leave them here just because you came. Would you like to take a picture?
Yeah, we'll do.
Go right across that whole.
Back to the wall, guys.
So tall.
Last time we did this, it looks like I'm not here.
I think you can stand in a chair, or should we go there?
Let's go. We're going around. Because it looks like we're not here.
All we got, all we need. Good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next item is a presentation regarding Fast Track Institute Incorporated.
Welcome.
Thank you. Very hard act to follow.
It is, it
We
is.
are the Mass Academy champions, although I did play for Cornell many years ago, so. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for inviting me tonight. I'm here in representation of Fast Track Institute. My name's Eldridge Birmingham. I'm with Fast Track Institute. I, for years, was a senior staff scientist and the director of the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute, and I came to Miami about 4 years ago to head science at your new science museum, Philip and Patricia Frost Museum of Science, and I stayed there until opening, and then I decided to join forces with Fast Track, and specifically with Maurice Ferre, who many of you know, who's one of the co-founders of Fast Track Institute, and Rodrigo Arboleda, who's also a Key Biscayne resident and another co-founder of Fast Track Institute. I was invited here tonight because Rodrigo and Maurice have both been talking to the community about a program that we ran in Miami-Dade called the Miami-Dade Mobility Fast Track, which sought new solutions to problems of congestion throughout the county. But I think because two of our founders are Key Biscayne residents, it was particularly important to them that we look for ways to potentially collaborate with Key Biscayne on some of the solutions, which I'll mention. And I want to thank Frank and Luis and Melissa and the foundation for walking me through, and Myra for, in a sense, giving us a second chance, because I know Rodrigo put forward an LOI that was both broad and overly specific at the same time, not a particularly good LOI. And so Frank and Luis and the Community Foundation have been working on other documents that might be a more reasonable way to start a collaboration or a partnership. But I thought what I'd do is give you a little bit of an overview of both Fast Track, what the mobility solutions were, and I'm just going to evidence one that I think might be of particular interest to Key Biscayne. I'm a Mac user, so if I just tap this, am I going to?
Let's start it from the beginning.
That's great.
And spacebar just.
Spacebar? Thanks so much. Appreciate it. So as it says on our logo, what we're really about is accelerating technology into society. We're really about taking advantage of those exponential technologies that you've all heard about, you've all used, Uber, Airbnb, Lyft, et cetera, and thinking about ways that we can reimagine how cities function, including the city of Key Biscayne. And what we love about cities is the fact that we all, by 2045, 80% of the world's population will live in cities. Cities is where it happens. And so we asked a simple question: if you could solve 4 major challenges in the city you love, what would they be? We took that to Mayor Carlos Jimenez, and he said, look, I just have one that I want you to solve. I want you to solve traffic congestion. And I want you to help us see through the SMART plan and other things like that. We were very clear to Mayor Jimenez and to MDX and others that, look, we don't come in and try to solve $5 billion infrastructure problems. What we're really about is, can we change behaviors? And we start with exponential change. I've already mentioned it once. Graph here, you see autonomous vehicles there. The real focus probably for City of Key Biscayne and lots of other cities within Miami-Dade and across the country and across the world should really be this artificial intelligence. You guys are about to install smart lights. When you first install them, they're not going to be terribly smart. They'll be modestly smart. They'll be smarter than the lights you have right now. But they'll be really smart when all of a sudden they realize that simultaneously Rodrigo and Maurice are leaving Mashta Drive and heading in with about 17 other cars, and they'll know that ahead of time. That's when they get truly smart. That's artificial intelligence. And you're going to see that really dramatic changes associated with that. Little typo here, so skip the second individual. But for the first time in human history, individuals, people, communities have the same innovation power as large companies and even nation states. So again, think about Uber, think about Lyft. Could you even imagine it 10 years ago? Now they control more vehicles than all the taxi companies in the world. Airbnb, more hotel rooms than all the hoteliers in the world. It's remarkable when you think about it. You know about the changes in computation. You know about the changes in renewable energy, particularly solar. We describe this as abundance. I mean, we've been accustomed, given the age, now that the kids have left, given the ages of everybody here, we've grown up where scarcity is priced. But before we die, we're going to see that abundance is going to completely change the way we do business. Again, here in Florida, you're seeing it with solar energy already. You'll see it in many, many other ways. So when citizens do what companies did and companies do what governments did in the past, what is government doing now? And I think that's a really interesting question for a village council to think about what you do. And Peter Diamandis, one of the other co-founders, the third co-founder of Fast Track, is Salim Ismail, who is the founding executive director of Singularity University in Silicon Valley. And Peter, along with Ray Kurzweil, were the two founders of Singularity. And they really founded Singularity University with this idea that most of us simply can't put our arms around exponential change. And that if we were going to meet and take advantage of exponential change, we needed to learn about it, understand it, and utilize it. And that's what Singularity University does. And Salim, as the executive director of that, obviously is well schooled in exponential technologies and really was the motive force behind the Fast Track. So you all identify with your city. We all do. And there was, for obvious reasons, you have direct influence both in terms of what your tax dollars get you and who you vote for. And it was interesting, in light of this slide, to hear the opening remarks and your frustration with Tallahassee and the disconnect between what you do here in Tallahassee. So this is a perfect example. That was a perfect example of this. Cities are also the right scale. They're just the right entities to start solving problems because we can do this very quickly. All right, so Fast Track origins, I've already mentioned it, Rodrigo, Maurice, Salim Ismail. The Fast Track process, very, very briefly, 4 slides left. It starts with an awake process. We bring people together and we say, what are your pain points? And then we have a rubric that we use to sort through them. Again, in the case of Miami-Dade, we went straight to the principal pain point that the mayor had because he was willing to put money behind it, as was MDX, as was the Knight Foundation, as were the Codina family. All I want you to look at on this slide, because I think it's interesting, are from the team stage on, conceptual, social, entrepreneurial, technology, final presentation, and acceleration. That's interesting, particularly when you look at the social phase. I've already mentioned several times now Lyft and Uber. If you followed what happened with Uber in France, particularly, taxi drivers were coming out and breaking the windows of Uber vehicles. There's social disruption. And one of the things that Fast Track aims to do is minimize that social disruption. Each of these stages is 2 weeks, so you come up with a concept. When we form the teams, we form 2 teams. They compete and they cooperate. They each have to come up with a solution at the end of 10 weeks. It's a very fast process. It's very accelerated. They come up with a concept. They then have to think about that concept in terms of the people who it will impact. So they're actually out on the street talking to people. Then there's the entrepreneurial phase. What's the business behind it? Is there a business? Is there a product? How do you do it? Then there's the technology phase. How do you ramp it up? How do you take advantage of existing technologies and move on? So I've already mentioned Miami and mobility. For obvious reasons, I've already mentioned the public-private partnership. And so this slide just introduces the 2 solutions, CityMove and Sync.me. I'm only going to go through CityMove. There's only 2 more slides, just to give you a sense of what a solution attempts to do in this case. In this case, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to change behaviors. What you really have to do to decongest Miami is you have to get people out from behind the wheel of their personal car, driving a single person from home to play or home to work and back again. Whether you do it by carpooling, whether you do it on buses, whether you do it on Metro Rail, whether you get on your bicycle, your golf cart here in Key Biscayne, it doesn't matter as long as you get cars off the road and to the extent possible, leave them in your driveway and leave them in your garage. Carpooling and things like this have been tried many, many times and failed. So what CityMove did in its solution, it says, what happens if we begin to incentivize you to utilize this app. We'll pay you. So there's cash prizes, there's ride incentives. So if you do it, perhaps the parking for the vehicle that you're in is free, tolls are reduced, you get credits for utilizing ride shares like Lyft or Uber, donations to charity, and leaderboards. I mean, Frank and I have laughed about I wear a Fitbit, and it's pretty amazing when you're competing with, in my case, my spouse and my children, what it gets me to do that I wasn't doing a while ago. And I told you, I live on Miami Beach, and I was going to Purdy Avenue. My tradition, if I'm going up there for dinner, because I don't want to walk all the way back to Second Avenue, is I ride once around the block to see if by chance there's an available parking spot close to the restaurant. But I have to go past a parking lot where there's always spaces to do my one route. And the last time I got this from my daughter for Christmas, the last time I went, which was about 4 nights ago, I came in, I pulled into the first parking spot in the parking, and my wife looked at me, she said, "What are you doing? You never do this." I said, I got to take my Fitbit for a walk. And so it makes a difference. And so I think incentives are extraordinarily important. And I think we can change behaviors with them, which is what this is about. So this only works with a couple riders or more. And if you get every time you get more riders, you double the rewards. So again, there's incentives to go with more than one person, more with two people. If you're on a whole bus, everybody shares in the rewards, and everything's kept track of here, which I think is really interesting. So with that, I'm going to close because I promised I would keep it very short. But I think if we can establish a successful collaboration. I should back up for 1 minute and say, all Fast Track does in this, we're a 501c3. We're not out to make money. We do, as part of our 501c3, because of the effort that we put into each solution, we have a very small share if, in fact, the solution turns into a business, less than 5%, more typically 2 to 3%. But we're not in the business of developing the solutions ourselves. We have the platform, we have the process. 2 solutions have come out of this, City.move and Sync.me. And our role really would be, partly because Rodrigo and Maurice know Key Biscayne, partly because I certainly understand the overall ecosystem of Miami-Dade, would be to say, are there opportunities in Key Biscayne for us to collaborate? Is this a good test market for either CityMove or Sync.me, and to have those types of conversations? If the conversations go forward positively, then it would be either CityMove or Sync.me that would sit down with the city council or with the village manager and develop a contract for how it would move forward. Again, we're just sort of here to facilitate conversation and get both sides to understand the potential. And for me, one of the reasons that I'm beyond Rodrigo and beyond Maurice, that I'm really intrigued and interested in the city of Key Biscayne is because you guys are already extraordinarily progressive on the mobility front. And so obviously when you're trying to do a proof of concept and put these things out there, a community that's already thinking about congestion, has already converted to golf carts, to freebie, to Lime Bike, et cetera, it has that appropriate frame of reference for thinking about new solutions. But I think with these solutions, we'd actually be going the next step forward.
Now, for the benefit of everyone watching from home, can you please explain CityMove and Sit.me? What the concepts are for CityMove, for the 2 prototypes that you are developing?
Yeah, so for CityMove, it's what I explained a moment ago. It is really simply a way to incentivize people to get out of their cars, or at least to share rides with other people, whether that's, or to get out of their car and use a bicycle or walk. There's lots of different ways to get credit. You get more credit, more chances to win. You can win more money if, instead of getting in your car, you get in a bus, for example. So if you start to think about buses or autonomous vehicles that are going from here to Vizcaya, for example, to get on the Metro Rail, or go all the way down to Brickell, those sorts of things, tremendous incentives. One thing, it's a great question. One of the things I didn't point out in this whole, when we set up the problem for Miami-Dade, what we were after is, can we make transportation safer, more comfortable, and can we decrease the travel time from point A to B? I mean, if you go back to ancient Rome, ancient Athens, people never moved more than about a half an hour. They were walking then, but they never moved a half an hour. Even there are days, even from Key Biscayne, when you guys can't get to Brickell in a half an hour, or back from Brickell in a half an hour. You should be able to go virtually anywhere in Miami-Dade in a half an hour. And that's what we're really after, is how you do that. And again, with City Move, the idea is you incentivize people to do this. You're collecting data as they do it, just like all of you who use a Waze app or Google Map, et cetera. You're always providing data. Those data permit apps like this to optimize routes. They can work with smart lights to make smart lights smarter. So you're collecting data as you go. The second solution is called Sync.me. It's similar. It's also around behavior change. It does it in a more complicated manner. It does it by asking people, in a sense, to allow their calendars to be linked. How you link your calendars and the circles with whom you link is a personal choice. But if you do that, Sync.me will come in and say, mayor, vice mayor, council members, you guys all live within a block of one another and you're having a quick meeting, go to the Starbucks instead of go downtown. And if you do that, Starbucks will incentivize you to do that, but you're also saving time and you're taking your vehicle off the road. And I haven't touched on it yet, but most of these new technologies, again, really focus on information as, in a sense, the new oil. And they take advantage of things like blockchain technologies to actually collect that data, optimize, whether it's a route, a payment scheme, what have you. Does that?
Absolutely, that was wonderful.
And this closing slide was just something that, that actually Frank and Luis and Melissa, et cetera, helped a little bit with, was just to say, you know, because I think somebody had blown it with the initial LOI. This was just a way to sort of say, this is what we're looking for. I think we bring a new set of eyes to the city of Key Biscayne, but as I've already indicated, city of Key Biscayne brings to us a very progressive attitude towards mobility. So that's a win-win from my perspective. I think we can bring not only adaptive technologies that we know work around the world. I've been pointing out that one of the great things about Singularity University is its global alumni. So this is a global alumni that's trained in exponential technologies. They're in places like Singapore, Hong Kong, New York, looking at new adaptive technologies that work. So we have sentinels, as it were, around the world, and we can take advantage of that information and bring it here. We also know what doesn't work, which is equally important at times. And then, as I've already mentioned, through City.move, I think we can work with the city of Key Biscayne as a change ambassador and get people to actually think about their behaviors when it comes to moving and getting behind the wheel of their car.
Wonderful. And now we have Brett and then Katie have questions for you, please.
So when you worked with Miami-Dade County, my understanding is that over that 16-week period, there was two teams that came in and developed a new technology, which you call a new adaptive technology.
Yes.
And when you're coming to us, I was trying to understand a little bit. We're not going to have two new teams try to develop something with us. You're basically taking those two things that were already developed and see if we can implement it here, correct?
That's correct.
For the test market.
Okay.
That's correct. It's a very interesting question, though, because we do the other as well. So Salim and I are meeting with Mayor Suarez on Tuesday. Mayor Suarez has identified 21 pain points in the city of Miami. And so we will sit down with them in the first part of that you pointed to, and to ask, what else can we do? But in the case here right now, all we're talking about is, can we collaborate with the city of Key Biscayne to bring these solutions here? And these solutions are not final solutions.
Sure.
I pointed that out. They're at the end of 10, they put together their solutions in 10 weeks. The whole process was 16. but they did theirs in 10 weeks. And so now what they need to do is they really need to refine it. And one of the ways they would refine it is by developing that business plan in conjunction with the city of Key Biscayne.
And it would be interesting of how it would be adapted to our neighborhood, because we have very specific issues, like one bottlenecked area, right? And maybe, you know, Miami-Dade County does not really have that issue that we're dealing with, or the golf carts and some of the new technologies that we're looking at, the driverless golf carts, things like that. Would be very interested in how that system that they've already studied can adapt to that, or they may have to redevelop it a little bit more to adapt to what we're doing.
It's another really, really good question, important question. So the big answer first, they would adapt. So really these solutions are meant to fit different needs, and you're exactly right. Different cities across the 34 municipalities in Miami-Dade have extraordinarily different needs. What this app really does is it says, okay, if you're in the city of Key Biscayne, and one way to reduce traffic, for example, particularly as you're getting off Key Biscayne, would be to have buses, and we're working with Red Coach, for example, and particularly autonomous buses, that were safe, convenient, comfortable, and on time. You know, they would say the way they would incentivize that, so the way they try to get you to get out of your car and onto that bus is in Key Biscayne relative to Doral, is they'd say, if you take that bus, we'll incentivize you differently than we would incentivize a bus rider in Doral, for example. So you have tremendous flexibility because of the incentive program to do that. I mean, many of you are probably, I mean, I'm a executive platinum American person, and I'm sort of, you know, I've got one foot into retirement, you know, semi-jubilado. But so when I fly someplace now, because I got a lot of miles, I'm very careful about whether I fly someplace for 40,000 miles or 15,000 miles, because I have the flexibility schedule to mainly go at 15,000 miles. So it's remarkable to me what you can do with incentives, and that's probably the best example of how we address a question like yours when we're contrasting Doral to the city of Key Biscayne.
Thank you. And Katie, you have a follow-up question.
Could you explain a little bit more where you are in this process with Dade County? And it sounds like these are third-party vendors, and how are you going to determine whether you're successful or not? And then I have another question after you answer.
That's a great question, because I didn't touch on it at all. I'm going to go, let's see if I can go back quickly. So this fast track process, the teams, that final presentation, that last small gray bar, they're finished. They produced their solution. We deliver to Miami-Dade. In a sense, we've fulfilled our commitment to Miami-Dade County. We've fulfilled our commitment to the Knight Foundation, to Codina Partners, and to MDX, okay, with that. But you see the next button, big button, is acceleration. For the first time with Miami-Dade, and again, largely through the generosity of the Knight Foundation, a remarkable group, we ended up with $164,000, which we split between the two teams, which they have as seed money and matching funds to accelerate their business. So they take the idea that they put forward in their final presentation, and they're now building two businesses. We help curate that a little bit. So I'm playing a slightly larger role with City.move than I am with Sync.me now. But basically, that's where City of Key Biscayne comes in. They would come in and say, all right, we've now taken this to the next step. We used the $82,000 and we raised another $82,000. We now have an app that we can put on your phone, and we're going to ask you to give it a try. And you try it.
You're asking us, or one of these two teams is asking us?
One of the two, ultimately one of the two teams would be asking you.
Okay.
We would just.
And then we're going to be a test pilot for Dade County, basically. I mean, because it's not implemented in Dade County in any way at this point. This is an idea that they're trying to push forward.
Right now, the cities that are sort of in the top tier, City of Miami Beach, City of Doral, City of Coral Gables, and depending on how this conversation goes, City of Key Biscayne. Those are where our four target communities. But again, there's no longer any connection between Miami Dade. And at this point, it's like, just like there's no real connection between Lyft and Miami-Dade. I mean, Lyft, obviously Miami-Dade tries to regulate Lyft, but there's no real connection there. If either one of these companies takes off, then whether it's Miami-Dade, whether it's City of Key Biscayne alone, scales out to Miami-Dade, which we'd love to see, scales beyond all of South Florida, scales beyond nationally. I mean, that's where a company like this would really make money. And obviously, as they try to raise seed funding, that's the type of conversation they'll have. Can they scale this idea? You got a second question?
It was both at the same time, which was, what was your company's role? Because I was confused between you and these two companies that have spun out.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we're a foundation, not a company, and our role, particularly in Key Biscayne, because of Rodrigo and Maurice, is just initially because of Rodrigo and Maurice and their long involvement with this community, but ultimately me, because when I recognize how progressive City of Key Biscayne was with regard to mobility issues, it became a very interesting possible test community.
I want to thank you all for reaching out to us and considering us for a test market. It's exciting. It's very exciting. And so I guess for tonight, what is the next step? And we have that in our agenda for later.
All right, so.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank everyone.
Public comments?
Public comments.
Should I say for this, or?
No, not necessarily. However you feel.
I'm happy to if you want. I mean, if there's public comment that I can answer, I'll say.
Oh, no, it's public comments,
public
general
comments
public
in
comments.
general.
Okay, it's,
Thank you very much.
Take care.
our first speaker is Mike Davey.
All right, Mike Davey, 50 Ocean Lane Drive. Really quickly, the mayor has put on the agenda the address verification agreement between ourselves and the school district. I just wanted to give you a quick update. We just received the latest version from the school district. And so the EAB, the Education Advisory Board, will be meeting to review it, talk about it on the 21st so that it will be ready for you for next meeting.
Thank you.
You are welcome. That was it.
Goal accomplished. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks. Have a good night.
Our next speaker, I have Fernando Romero, York Flick, and Don Ellisberg. They're all signed up for the ordinance that is in front of us. Do you want to speak for public comments now or during the ordinance?
I prefer during the ordinance.
I might say something now.
Okay.
I'll be brief. York Flick, 338 West Hill Drive. I just wanted to, of course, thank you all for your efforts last meeting in creating a corridor for us. And normally, as I think you know, I typically don't actually kite anywhere from the condos. I usually kite north and head upwind somewhere. But I made a point of actually kiting at this new corridor spot just so I can see with my own eyes. And I'm happy to report to all of you that I think it was working overwhelmingly well where it was. I saw almost without exception 0 transgressions by our group. We, on our own, were successful in redirecting everyone from the Commodore area to this new spot. There are stragglers out there who are not part of our group, who are out there in places that they should not be. That's an issue that we're going to have to talk about, I guess, when we discuss the ordinance portion of this meeting. But just to kind of get things going, I want to thank you for having done what you did, and I was pleased to actually launch there and find that that it's working so far. So I do have comments though concerning the ordinance that I think are important. So if you want to call me later on, I'll be available. Thank you.
Thank you. And Fernando Romero.
Hi, hello everyone. Fernando Romero, 121 Crandon Boulevard, Key Biscayne. I'm just going to read a statement on behalf of our association. 2 weeks ago, we moved to change the name of the association from Key Biscayne Kiteboarding Association to Key Biscayne Water Sports Association. We thought about that from Vice Mayor Kaplan's initiative or comment, based on the fact that regulating non-motorized water sports implies not only regulating kiteboarding, but paddleboarding and other watercrafts that are not motorized. So we moved to change the name to Key Biscayne Water Sports Association. Furthermore, we created a mission statement. We are a recreational club, nonprofit organization. We will be applying for nonprofit status soon. The association is run by water sports enthusiasts, kiteboarders, windsurfers, paddleboarders, kayakers. The board of directors works tirelessly to promote the water sports in beautiful Key Biscayne. The aims are to promote non-motorized water sports, to obsess a little bit about weather conditions, protect our water access rights, and respect and enforce the rules. In order to comply with the requirements that will be imposed by the ordinance in place and other requirements, we are pleased to announce the following milestones that we have accomplished so far. First of all, we are procuring group insurance, and we have requested 2 quotes so far to up to $1 million in liability. Some of us have been really diligent at advising us on and helping us how to do this. We have issued streamers now to identify our members. We have the delivery of streamers up to 95%. So right now, any police officer can actually identify any kiteboarder out there that belongs to our group with a streamer that has their last name and the last 4 digits of their cell phone number. No streamer is issued unless the rider is ICAO level 3 at least. We are reinforcing that. We have imposing strict regulations that limit the practice of the sport in swimming areas, as you know. We have been enforcing the rules with the help of members of our organization and the Key Biscayne Police. We have banned the practice of the sport in front of the Commodore Club building, as requested by the Village Council. We have restricted the ingress and egress for the activity to the Sonesta Channel, as advised. And we have scheduled a beach cleanup for Sunday, February 21st at 11 a.m. We expect participation of over 200 people. We already have sponsors, and we hope to see you all there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any more individuals who would like to speak at public comments other than during an ordinance?
If I may, Dita Sauer, Ocean Lane Drive, 155.
Sir, please come to the podium and then answer so that we can have it for the record.
Name is Dita Sauer, Ocean Lane Drive, 155. I actually had a nice statement, but I heard enough already, and I can't believe that we make so much fuss about a sport that is very healthy and very safe. It's certainly better than skydiving, scuba diving, and whatever else you want to look at as a sport. I personally, I'm one of the Commodores, and I enjoy watching them from the balcony. I know that they try to go out as quick as they can to the area that's away from the beach and the swimmers. They actually enjoy it when it's more windy, when there is no beach swimmer or beach walkers. And but when I saw these on the agenda, I have now more question than all these statements. It says ordinance first reading, and it goes down here. It says providing for codification. What are we trying to do with codification? Severability and conflicts. What does all that mean?
That's the legalese that we use when we're passing an ordinance. So that's just for our clerk
With all due respect, thank God I was a doctor and still a doctor, I'm not a lawyer. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And with that, we close public comments. Next item. Madam
Next
Clerk.
item, approval, deferrals, additions, deletions, substitutions, withdrawal.
Sure. I'll tell you very quickly, I would like to add just a status on Mini Zork Ad Hoc Committee and invite people to make suggestions for the committee. And we will be addressing that next meeting. And yes, Luis.
I'd like to add an item, discussion of the Public Works Department.
Public Works.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Seeking guidance for Incorporation Park at the 530 property.
What item is the managers under?
Do we want
D, D1, okay.
Can I add a follow-up to our sign workshop to schedule a date for our walk down Crandon?
Yeah. Yes. Sign follow-up.
I'm sorry, was it Crandon?
Stroll.
Stroll.
We're gonna do it on Lime bikes?
I like that idea.
So,
There's plenty of them out there.
what do you want to do about Fast Track? I don't want to have, I didn't intend a discussion item on Fast Track under 11A1.
So we would strike it.
I intended not a legislative item on the LOI. So how do you want to handle this in light of what we just heard?
Well, I think that there, you did some work on a particular letter that I had to find encompasses what we should be looking at, and I think that they've told us that they're in agreement. Have you all had an opportunity to look at that? That was
Yeah, has the attorneys looked at it and was okay with the letter? of
I'd like a
intent?
discussion about the whole thing.
I would
because-
like a discussion. I had a discussion about the ILA also.
okay.
Because I think we need to discuss.
Let's just put it as a discussion
Yes.
item and take it off as an action item.
That's exactly what I wanted to do in the first place.
Fine.
Did you ask for it to be an action item?
Well, I had, because I think it can be a very general act with then follow-up. And
Let's
Frank
just,
wants, is that right? You want to talk about it in either place? Do you feel strongly about it? in
I
one
think
or
it's,
the other?
I think it's not at this point ripe as an action item. I think we have to have the discussion.
Put it on
You
as
know
a
what,
discussion.
let's keep it, wait a minute, let's keep it where it is. And once we have the discussion, let's keep it as an action item. If we have a discussion, we roll it over.
But there is no way this is getting approved, in my view. So if we want to do something, we want to have a discussion. This is not ready for prime, this is never going to be, it's a non sequitur in terms of what our goals are.
just put it as 1A.
The problem is that we need to have this collective body discuss it and
Well,
give
then why is it an action
direction.
item?
He's
What?
saying just put it as 11-1A and
No,
just
because-
strike it in the action item.
There's no
That's it.
chance that this could get approved as it's
Because it-
written, as it's
Because we can
presented.
have it as an action item and we can defer the action.
Doesn't
This
matter where
action
we
will
discuss
never-
it.
There's no difference, though.
It will never be passed.
Well, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about the original letter of intent, which none of us could possibly
Well, you don't
understand
know
what
that.
it
Have
said.
you spoken
They
to each
don't
individual?
even intend it. He just said
Well,
that.
I think we need to have, well,
Okay, I mean, if you want to waste that time, we'll do it.
No,
But
we
No,
can have a
put it as
discussion. It's just a
11-1A.
question of where we're
11-1.
having this discussion. I
sooner
happy
rather
either
than
way.
later.
But
That's it. It's
we're not
going to be
gonna
the
vote
same
for this.
discussion.
We're not going to approve it, so we want to have a discussion. I don't care where it lies,
Okay.
but we're not going to approve it, so.
Well, and we're not saying we are, but we need to have a policy discussion.
So make it a discussion
All of
item
us
for
together.
10A, but make it a discussion item, not an
Yes,
action item.
that's perfect.
Done.
Okay.
And now the agenda is amended. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is the consent agenda.
Moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is an ordinance on first reading. It's an ordinance of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, amending Section 4-33 kiteboarding relating to additional kiteboarding regulations, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second?
Thank you.
This, I'd like to open this up to first council, and then we will call the public for comments on the ordinance on second reading.
No, this is first reading.
Oh, sorry. I'm still stuck on the other one. My apologies. Thank you, Katie. You know what? It's been around for so long that it feels like it might be like the fifth reading.
Third reading.
It is the 100th reading. So, but thank you. Council members, would anyone like to start?
I think, I mean, I'm happy to start. This is really just a carryover and in an effort to put regulations in place for the people that can kiteboard within our village to continue to increase safety for our beaches and have a peaceful coexistence.
I want to thank you because I think this is exactly the next step, and it's incredibly clear, and it is what we need to make sure that it is safety is really supported. The only thing that I would add, and it's a policy decision, is where it says that the manager shall establish or may establish temporary restrictions on kite surfing, kiteboarding, and this is number 8, by the way, paragraph 8. Due to holidays, weather conditions, or beach overcrowding. I would actually already in the ordinance mention a couple holidays that I think are just inflexible. And that would be Memorial Day, 4th of July, and
Labor Day.
Labor Day. And other than that, it would be based on policy, but I think those are just no-brainers.
How would you do that? You would include that in 8, or you'd add 10 and or change 9? What do you want to do there?
The question is, do we want to do a resolution that we can make changes to outside this ordinance?
Just policy. We can just, yes.
Because we could just say
Yes.
kiteboarding shall be permitted during the following, or just even take that out and just say that, the village council may by resolution set seasonal kiteboard operations by resolution. And then we could have a separate resolution that we can adjust if we find that there's another holiday that we forgot.
Well, I think there are just some that are just completely inflexible, and then we will supplement by resolution. That was just my
You're going to have
thought.
them in 2 places. I don't know if that gets.
Well, people are going to need to look on the website to see if there's restrictions due to weather. I mean, I think it's there. We are going to have a kind of working document or an evolving document. Allison, then Katie.
I just had two comments. One was in number 3, I think it should read 10 kiteboarding kites on the beach and within the channel at one time. And then the other was number 7. I had real questions about the hours. It struck me that we were limiting them to kiteboard at times where people were more likely to be on the beach, as opposed to like people kiteboarding before they go to work when there are no beachgoers. It just didn't make any sense to me.
So you would start it at 7 a.m.?
I don't know.
Sun
that
up,
we
sun
don't
down.
get- Or I don't know why we
Daytime.
have hours. I mean, unless it's because we intend to have a person paid on the beach checking streamers as they go, why are there hours?
Initially, when we discussed it, was about getting the kiters off the beach during that peak 4 to 6 p.m.
And now we're putting them.
I realize that, and I don't, yes, but that was
Maybe
the
that's
initial
something you can
discussion.
handle in a resolution and just eliminate
Just
it.
scrap it entirely from this ordinance.
Or you say
Put in
shall
a
not be
resolution.
permitted, but.
Well, just kiteboarding shall be permitted during seasonal hours,
I don't know why.
Just strike it.
Hours at all.
Strike it.
Strike it.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry, it is
wanted to
Katie.
know if we wanted to hear public comments before we had our main discussion, or does that happen after?
I thought we might be addressing some of the issues, so I thought about it, and that's why I did it that way. And that way we can, Frank.
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay. Let's just start with what we did last time. We added 433 to create the channel. And we added the definitions. And that's it, right? And then we
Yes.
were going to come back tonight and fill in the use restrictions. Is that right?
The more general, with always thinking that there's going to be a document that is created and managed by the manager.
And this document refers to rules that these gentlemen and their colleagues need to acknowledge and agree to abide by. And those rules would be whatever combination of things we develop, including either an ordinance or a resolution, or rules that would have to be maybe a hard copy delivered when they register with a little signature that says we received it and we agree, something like that.
Read it, understand it, and will comply.
So I still don't, I'll just ask this question and then we'll move on. I still don't understand the whole genesis of doing this way and why we didn't amend the resolution from 2005, which created an exception to the no vessel zone, which now would be expanded and made specific for this channel for this purpose. That's what I always thought we were doing, but we're not. Instead, we've adopted this channel, right? And now we're supplementing the resolutions. But
Yes.
I'm still left with the unanswerable, unless, in my mind, without, I don't know, better advice or input, as to whether we're creating an inconsistency with the 2005 reso, and especially with the beach management plan that's in the zoning code that builds on that reso. Is this compatible with all of that?
According to Chad, it is,
Well,
right?
Well, do you have some reason to believe that there's a conflict?
well, for example, and I don't mean to get persnickety about this, but none of this made sense to me from the start, why we were doing this way. But for example, if this is a type of beach management plan for this specific purpose, and I think the beach management ordinance says that when there's something other than picnic tables and umbrellas and chaise lounges, a functionality, it must be subject to a beach management plan. So one question is this that kind of thing? And if it is, among other things, there's supposed to be a motorized vessel for rescue, and there's not going to be that in this case. So I just didn't want to step in a trap that we can sort of see before us, but we're not really sure with great clarity whether we're stepping into or not.
So the beach management plan concept was directly related to the upland property owner. Okay, the whole concept is that you had a condominium or a hotel or some upland owner who was using the beach adjacent to their property in a particular fashion.
Sessions or whatever.
And what we wanted to do was to make sure that there was a real plan to what was happening out there and that you all approved it. For example, you didn't want chairs all over the place. You didn't want necessarily jet skis, whatever it happened to be, or if you were going to allow them, what was the plan? By what time of the day are you going to take all those chairs off of there? They're going to stay there all night long. That was the concept, which was we were concerned that everybody was doing different things, leaving equipment out on the beach at night. It was unsafe,
Right.
and we wanted to get some. This is not tied to an upland owner. Okay, this is not like a condo association or a hotel who's saying, this is the way we're going to operate on the beach behind our property. This is okay, so this is slightly different than that. I don't think that there's a conflict in the way we've done that in a beach management plan. I do agree with you that there certainly this could have been done in a different fashion, which is you could have just simply made an exception, as you have the power to do under the existing ordinance, and create an exception where people can go within the 300 feet with a vessel, like we had done previously, and we could have put conditions on that exception, which read very similar to this.
Gary, you have the floor.
No, I'm not done.
Excuse me.
So
Sorry, Gary.
I recognize this isn't an upland owner. The question that arose is whether this is in the nature of a concessionaire of some sort. And let's not get hung up on that, but we'll put that to bed. If it doesn't apply, we're left with the logic of doing this in an ordinance seems to me to be the better move, because we've started this way. Let's just finish it. In the second whereas, I don't think the last ordinance actually created kiteboarding regulations. I think that it inserted definitions and created the channel. I think what we're doing now is creating kiteboard regulations. And I would suggest that we include in the second whereas, it's not just the fact that it's a popular activity, it's the nature of the equipment and the methodology for launching and recovery that impels us to take this regulatory action. I think that expresses the purpose better and stronger. I liked what Allison had to say about 10, but it's not more than 10. It's not 10, it's however many there are, but not more than 10, at number 3. And I think our definitions last time around included operation, so I think we're okay with that. Because the notion, remember, was that operation is only in the water, but here we're regulating operation on the beach too. So I think we might need to fix that. Because nothing in the operation definition or concept deals with beach activities as it's written now. And that's the whole point of this, really. I would kill the times. I think the last time we met, the times didn't make a lot of sense to anybody. I would kill that. And I like the idea of being specific about holidays.
Yep. So let's add the holidays.
I think so, yeah.
I think those are just.
Then we had a thought too about, is it necessary to say something, or is it helpful to say something to the effect that when you're getting ready to deploy and laying out your lines, you're not going to interfere with the dunes? We had that thought, to add that as a restriction.
I thought within
That was in the first one,
within
though,
the
wasn't it?
channel. That was contemplated within where the channel was.
So is that right? The definition of channel is at the coast, is at the erosion lines?
Yes.
Yes.
We're okay.
So that's addressed.
I think that's it. Now, we had a concept of sunset. Did we want to deal with that?
Not at this point. No, I think that's.
I'm good.
Okay, Gary, please. And then Brett, who I skipped twice, I apologize. So Gary.
I think what we have here is an expansion of what we did last time, and those two things combined have completely addressed the desires of the kiteboarders, the condo dwellers, and for the most part, the people that are sitting up here. I think to talk about endlessly how we got and what we did and how we got there, and it could have been done another way, is a waste of time. In all due respect, a waste of time. And I think if what we have before us accomplishes those things that I just mentioned, and we have some substantive things to either add or subtract, let's go ahead and do it, but not beat this thing to death on and on and on. I think we have made incredible strides after an agonizingly long series of discussions, and it's just time to get this done and move on, recognizing that because this will be passed as an ordinance, we have the ability to come back anytime we want and add things to it as we see fit. So this is an incredible move forward and accomplishes a significant amount that we want to accomplish, and I would hope that we would just vote on it and pass it now and be done with it for tonight.
Thank you, Gary. And Brett.
I agree 100% with you, Gary. I want to get this done. One other item that we did talk about last time that wasn't in here, is there any issue about limiting the number of registered permits that we will give out, or do we want to keep that unlimited? Two other items that I want to come up with is, one's a clarification, and I just want to get consensus from council to the manager to make sure that we're all on the same page. I think that a few times the Key Biscayne Kiteboard Association, I think that's the formal thing.
Water sports.
Water sports, has come up here and said, they talked about, they bought the streamers and everything like that. And from my point of view, I think this is going to be a village permitting, village issued streamer, that there is really no need to be giving streamers from this association. If they want to do it for themselves, just to know who's in there, that's fine. But to enforce this, I think it is something that I see that we're not, outsourcing this to anybody in any way. This is coming from the village. Everything's going to be done through the village. And I just want to make sure, consensus-wise, is that the clarity of what direction I think we are moving in?
I read it as they were in good faith trying to show that they could self-regulate.
Which is perfect.
But we are the ultimate arbitrators of how it's going to go.
Okay, and then the other one is what we passed in the last meeting, is it enforceable right now? Because I've heard two different sides of this, that it can be enforced, it may not be enforced. I just want to be 100% that our police can enforce not only if they're using it outside the channel, but anywhere on the beach other than what we designated the channel on the beach as well. Can they enforce it with what we passed last time?
The answer is yes.
Excellent.
I thought we had to wait for the buoys.
No, you had to, we had to wait for the map that was being drafted. There was some concern right after the adoption of it, well, how do we enforce it? You know, we don't know where the map is. We don't have the map. And that was the issue that came about in terms of enforcement. Now that we know, listen, the buoys are going to be helpful because they're going to delineate in the water precisely where the location is. But to the extent that somebody's straying outside of the channel, and it's observable and measurable to some extent, you can enforce it.
Will we need also any type of signage out there in that area, or they're
not
just going to kind of
necessarily.
line up with the buoys and that's it?
If we want to, I do think that there needs to be, and this contemplates, a certain set of administrative rules and regulations that are not going to be in here, okay? I think that the manager has to have some discretion with the police, whoever, to sort of come up with a program, including signage of where the channel is located, maybe including hours that you can operate. I think that would be a reasonable thing. If you want to put those in here, you can. But I do think there are going to have to be some implementing rules and regulations. And it contemplates it here because it says, review the village's kiteboarding rules and acknowledge their agreement to adhere to such rules. Okay, so this anticipates that there's going to be a set of rules that deal with day-to-day realities. Okay, so I don't think that this is the end of this discussion, but it certainly,
Very good
from
start.
an ordinance standpoint, it will be the end.
But I was just thinking that if somebody is here visiting at the hotel and brought their gear, they may not know that there's even a channel or illegal, so there might have to be something in that area saying like, you know, these are the rules, or you need to be permitted to do this, or it's
Do
illegal.
you mean behind the hotel?
The hotel will
Or maybe they're in a Airbnb. I have no idea, but
I don't know how to get to those people other than if they decide in an Airbnb down near the park to
They're
go
just gonna go out,
They're
yeah.
not going to see the sign that you put over here. I mean,
If you have something to say about this particular item, I mean, issue, go ahead.
Okay, well, go ahead, Myra.
I mean,
No, it's going to be Lisa who is, but
I just wanted to say maybe we could ask the manager to come forward at second reading to give us an idea of how he sees implementing these rules.
I think that's right.
yes, that's absolutely a great idea.
Okay.
Yes.
yeah, we had spoken several times, or I heard, you know, in the endless discussion that we've had on this, the use of a monitor or an enforcer or something, and I don't see it in this ordinance. So where is that? Are we okay without it?
Maybe the manager can address that.
I
of
think
how he's
that's
gonna
in the
monitor it.
nature of what you might want to adopt as rules and regulations.
Correct.
Okay. It's just like the community
I would-
center.
I
I
would-
mean, you don't have an ordinance on every place that somebody can lift weights or do this or that. There's a set of rules.
but the
I
police
would
are gonna
definitely,
monitor, right?
you know, suggest that we think very much about that, you know, that would help us out.
Will do. Will do.
One other quick
Yes.
thing that I'd like changed here in 5C, the paragraph, or what you referred to, Steve. I'd like to add that they have to give, with a signed agreement or waiver, however you want to write that, so that
Okay.
they're giving a signature.
Yep.
Okay.
Council,
No
are we
problem.
ready to open this to public comments?
Yep.
Our first speaker is Donald Ellisberg. Nice to see you, Don.
Hi, I'm Don Ellisberg, 177 Ocean Lane Drive, and I represent the Commodore Club East and the Condo Council. I'm going to be very, very brief. I really came here to thank you for what you've done, commend you for where you're going. York and all had, we probably had all the same things to say. The last few weeks have been, from the standpoint of our owners and residents, delightful because they've looked out on the beach
And thanks to the efforts of Chief Press, all they mostly see is the ATV going up and down, making sure people are where they're supposed to be. So we're comfortable with where you're headed. While obviously I might have 50 or 60 suggestions for the rules and regs, I did want to point out just one or two things for your consideration. Normally, rules and regs for something like this, you can get hysterical about. The interesting is, as we've all pointed out, there is an existing set of behavior rules and regs that are used up in North Crandon, that are used in the other associations. They're essentially used around the world. So you've got the template, you've got the template of virtually everything you want when you get to the rules. It's not a big deal in the sense that we all know what those rules are supposed to be. And secondly, I think that the only other thing I would wish for is I am sorry this is not the second reading. Thank you.
Oh.
That second reading here.
Tom, you were funny. Our next speaker is York Fleck, again.
Thank you, Council. I'll be brief. One should consider the concept of some sort of advisory board as you meet and develop rules and regulations that clearly have to be consistent with the ordinance. There are things in here that read in the way a rule or regulation would read, and it's problematic, and I'd rather tell you about it right now so that you don't waste any time thinking about it, okay? So I'm gonna start from the very beginning. First thing is, for subpart 2 on page 2, it's 4-33-2, deployment of a kiteboard. Kite shall only occur within the kiteboard channel. We should probably refer to the concept of launching and the corridor, because people are going to be launching the kite in the corridor and then proceeding into the channel. So I just want to make that distinction here. 10 kites, that's fine. Has the council thought about the possibility of limiting this to members, residents rather of Key Biscayne? Is that legal or not, council? I don't know the answer to that question, but
I don't think it was legal.
something to consider. Subpart 6 here, about a kite streamer attached to the kite. Practically speaking, nobody really does that. The streamers are typically attached to the back of a harness. The reason for that being is because people have different sized kites depending upon the day. So
That's a good
I don't think anyone would argue about that. I agree about striking the times. I mean, some of the most popular times will be in the beginning or the end of the day when the beaches are less crowded and people are working, so I wouldn't even consider that. 9, all kiteboarding equipment when not in use shall be contained within a bag. No one does that. It's completely not practical. But what is practical and what is very safe and what I do recommend adopting is a rule that says that when your kite is inflated on the beach and you're not using it, the lines have to be detached from the kite. That way, God forbid, if the kite does fly away, it's not going with lines. And furthermore, lines have to be wrapped up around the bar when not in use. So that's not going to tangle anybody. And those are pretty strict rules, and I'm not sure they're even doing it at Crandon, but it's something I would recommend for safety. Consider that. This Marshall issue, Lucio mentioned, it is an issue. I've spoken with Christoph. Christoph has told me that for as little as $12 an hour, he can get one of his marshals from Miami Kiteboarding to come down and marshal the section of the beach. I think ultimately that's something that the village should do. Even though we self-police as best we can, I think it's a good idea to have that. Go ahead and back that into the fee for registration. Let us pay for it. We don't care. I think it's important to do. And then lastly, no matter whether we have a ban on kiteboarding, which we're not talking about anymore, or we have a very strict rule, there will always be those people who are going to violate the rules. So we have to just think progressively about how are we going to address that issue when somebody is kiting outside the corridor, and I can't go over and tap them on the shoulder. That's going to happen. At some point, the village will have to deal with that, and I don't want it to reflect negatively on our group. So that's it from me. Any questions? Let me know. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have some questions to that one.
Yes, Brett.
If they're done with the public comments.
We are done with public comments. There's one more speaker. Fernando.
Fernando Romero, 121 Crandon Boulevard, Unit 457. Just a couple of clarifications from our standpoint to Council Members Moss mention of the streamers. The idea with the streamers was to show that we could self-police ourselves, and to do a mock-up of how it would be when you would put it to practice. The streamers was a great idea because it helped us identify who was in control of and aware of the rules. IKO level 3, things like that. The hot doggers that some people say. In the end, the blessing of hearing Mr. Ellisberg, who is a specialist in safety, in mine safety, and to hear him say that it was delightful, that fills our hearts with joy, because we were trying to do that. We walked the beach with the police. We ran after people saying, please do not launch there, move to the corridor. The enforcement of our members was incredible. I want to praise everybody in this group, 110 people who have been trying to do their best, so no hot doggers would do anything. And so the idea again is we are here to help, we offer our support to you to enforce, to regulate. If you have any questions, we are here, and we are at your complete disposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
Is it proper if I may ask a question?
Sure.
Regarding the insurance issue, and I heard something said earlier, I just need clarification on. This $1 million per kiteboard incident, the way it's written here, I hope that's to be presumed that it's for each kiteboarder, not for a kiteboarding association. I mean, I need clarification.
My understanding is per kiteboard.
Per kiteboarding, and that's perfect.
And they're trying to get an umbrella that covers every single person that's out there, but it's per kiteboarder.
Thank you.
That's, at least that's how I mean, in terms of, yes, correct. And Brett has a couple of questions, and we have Allison and Katie. And guys, let's wrap this up and
I want to wrap it up. Just a quick response with what York was saying. I understand that we decided that the channel includes the beach. So the beach is part of the channel that's directly in front of the channel, and in our terms, it is part of the channel. So anything that's saying that launching from the channel is not meaning launching in the water, but means the beach included with it. Streamers in Miami-Dade, do they put them on the back also in the county park, or they put them on the kites?
So
On the
it's-
harnesses.
it's Replace kite with harness.
Okay, and the bag. So when you step out of that section of where you're allowed to set up the kite, launch the kite out of the channel, are you allowed? Typically, do you roll this up and put it into a bag and walk out to your car or wherever in a bag? So the idea about the bag part was that when you're outside the channel, including that beach area, then it's in a bag. That's all that. So you can have it, like you said, not attached to lines out on the beach inflated. But when you step out of that area, then it should already be wrapped up in a bag. People shouldn't be putting kites out on the beach. Basically, that's what that was kind of what outside the channel side, and. Yeah, and that's it. I think if you guys want to put the marshals into the fee, then that's fine with me.
That's for future meetings.
That's
but
fine.
Yes. Any other comments, questions?
Well, just to go to that point,
Yes.
maybe 9 should read a little clearer and say all kiteboarding equipment, when not in use outside the channel,
There you go.
Okay.
shall be contained within a bag, so that's clear.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the question.
Roll call. Councilmember Dela Cruz,
Yes.
Councilmember Gross,
Yes.
Mayor Lindsay,
Yes.
Councilmember McCormick,
Yes.
Councilmember Moss,
Yes.
Councilmember Petros,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kaplan.
Yes.
The ordinance passes on first reading, and the second reading will be on March 13th, 2018. Next item is,
But before we go, I just want
sorry.
to be clear, because we're going to have to go back and revise this for the second reading. What did you decide to do about hours and holidays? Because I heard discussion, but it really didn't.
Can we
come out clear
remove
to-
hours and add the holidays?
We're striking hours,
And
we're going to prohibit it on,
Memorial Day.
Got it, Labor
4th of July
Day.
and Labor Day.
But that brings up a good point. I know we're outside the discussion item, but those holidays should be the weekends of the holidays. Saturday,
Correct,
Sunday,
correct.
and Monday, not just the holiday, right? It's all
Correct. No, it's the
days.
weekend. To me, it's the whole holiday.
Yeah.
Yes.
okay.
With
Yes.
4th of July, it gets a little confusing because it's not always on a weekend.
Okay, otherwise, I think I got everything, and if I didn't, I'm sure I'll hear from you people.
next item is a discussion item, Fast Track Institute.
We talk to them.
Okay, given the presentation, it seems to me that, I don't know if Fast Track is looking for us to be a pilot or one of those two apps is looking for us to be a pilot, not that dissimilar from the MIT program. And I don't know where we're going with all that, so.
So my understanding, and Luis, you could pipe in, is that two independent groups both approached us. Fast Track is looking really for almost apps or technology-based solutions where there's going to be synergies and people working together. And my understanding, the MIT program was for a driverless autonomous car.
Yeah, but I mean, they're not
But they're
related.
different, they're not related.
I
and
mean, they're
not
all
going-
issues of
Good
transportation
mobility options.
and
they're pilots.
they're pilots.
And they're pilots. So why not, if we have the benefit of being desirable, trying it?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think they're looking at us in particular. They're working with us, with Miami Beach, with Coral Gables, with a whole set of other municipalities in order to do this, and Miami-Dade County. And there's other people who have invested in significant funds, like Armando Codina. Mayor Jimenez is all in on it. Mayor Suarez is also in on it. And I wish you had the opportunity to listen to, because I was as confused as you, or worse, when I called them up and I said, I need to find out what this is all about. And I was extremely impressed with their presentation. You might want to seek them out and talk to them a little bit more.
I guess what I don't.
Why don't we bring them back for the benefit of the whole council and the public? I think that's when presentations are best done.
Do another
Let me just
presentation?
ask,
Sure.
how is this different than, let's say, Lime Bike, which has come into our community and is providing a
Very
service?
similar. Very similar.
I don't think it's, the answer to your question is these apps that he mentioned are not in this play. This is Fast Track who would develop an idea of what would be best for us if it's either of those two things or something else.
Well, that's a very different side to this that I didn't get out of his presentation.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
You specifically asked that question, didn't you? And he
Yeah.
said it'd be one or the other. We're not.
Frank,
Or something else.
Or
Frank, can you
something
repeat
else.
what you said?
Katie's question was, would we be dealing with the City Move or the Sync Me or with Fast Track? We would be dealing with Fast Track. And there were several things that he talked about doing for us, one of which is to understand what we've been doing and critique it. Another thing is to tell us, in their experience in other communities, what works and what doesn't work. And a third thing, and what I thought was the most important, was the behavioral change part, because we struggle with that. This whole idea of getting people out of the car requires big behavioral changes. His examples of City Move and Smart and Sync Me are examples of incentivizing those behavioral changes. But it may be something like that, or exactly that, or it may be something else. But the idea is to incentivize people to get out of cars.
But is it a, okay.
Gary is going to speak, and then Brett. Yes.
I personally am pretty impressed by what we heard tonight, and I was also impressed before what I heard tonight. And it seems to me that by entering into a collaboration with these people, which is basically nothing but a brain trust, to try to help us figure out how to solve our problems for free, I can't see any downside whatsoever to doing this. How much upside there is remains to be seen, and we can refine how it is we want to work with them and what it is we'd like them to focus on. But the issue of whether or not we should work with them, I cannot imagine why we wouldn't accept this and move forward with it.
Agreed.
And learn, as we're going through this, how to best utilize their abilities to solve the problems and issues that we consider to be the most important for our community. I think this is an incredible opportunity for free that very few communities will ever get.
And it's not all about
Gary,
mobility.
that is why I was so excited when they approached us, and you couldn't say it better. You're absolutely right. It is it's a wonderful opportunity, and I'm so thrilled
Mobility
that
is
they are
only,
here.
mobility is only one, only one aspect that is probably obviously what we most need help
I
on.
don't
But
know that because we weren't at that meeting, but
Well,
I think it's another meeting.
what he presented tonight sounded to me clearly like they wanted us to be a test pilot for one of those two apps. So what you're saying is a very different thing, and if that's what they're trying to do, then I'm for that concept, which is come and work with us to try to help us solve our problems,
There's really
whatever
no
we
downside.
identify as our problems. But that's not what I heard tonight. So-
there's really no downside. There's really no downside. They
No,
work with us if we get to a point where they have something that they propose, but, would be helpful to us, and they'll present it to us, and then we'll just.
So,
great.
So I would suggest that the next step is to have the manager meet with he is our manager and our lead, to meet with them and clear this up, and so we can come back and have additional discussion and/or have Steve fine-tune the agreement. Yes, Brett?
My question really was, and which is it's Optimus, right? Is the Optimus Ride is the one that's doing the research
Yes,
on
sir.
driverless. So, and what I see is similar in a way, and what I'm trying to clarify in my mind is that I believe both of these companies that we're going to deal with, if we decide to go with the fast track company, is that they both are looking at us as a possible business opportunity at some point. But really, they're coming to us and saying, look, we want you to be part of our research and development as well, so we can develop our business more, do more research. But when does it start to turn into, okay, now that we've done this, here's a proposal, and if you want it, you want it. If not, we're out of here. And that's what I'm just trying to figure out. Does that happen? How soon does that happen? I know Optimus Ride, it's a little bit.
It's
16 weeks, and they come and say the research is done. That's what I didn't
To me, it is
understand.
you have a pilot program for a certain term.
Okay, because the
And I mean,
16
and
weeks was
no, 16
development
week
of
is
the-
development
of the application.
ideas.
Yes,
Of ideas,
which they've
it's
already
kind of
done.
the whole analysis time as they did. But my understanding and when I was approached was that they have two different concepts, and they think that this market would be the ideal test market. That at least was how the conversation started, and part of what he said. Now, I think that there's been further developments because there was more dialogue. But I think that is one of their main objectives, is to have us, and as he said, when you're looking to get investors and you're raising capital, if you have a test market that is working really well, people say, okay, well, this is, and can you, scale it up?
Mhm.
That's what they're looking for.
So Optimus Ride is kind of, I think it was pretty clear that we have about a 2-year of testing. They're going to do the stuff, and then at some point they're going to say, all right, it works now. Do you guys want to pay us for it? I was just wondering, how does that happen here?
I'm not so sure that that's the plan.
You think they're going to stay here for 20 years providing the service for
No,
research?
but
I don't-
they're going to provide a service somehow. They're definitely using us they definitely are using us as a pilot program, okay? And from what I understand, actually, they're about to deploy very soon. I'm not sure you know any of the dates, but Melissa can fill you in on that. They're not the same thing. Optimus Ride is an actual contractor that takes action, okay? These people put together ideas, okay?
Their economic play is not us.
Okay.
Their economic play is to have a minority ownership stake in City Move and SyncMe.
No, I'm talking about City Move. That's who I'm talking about. I wasn't talking about Fast Track in there.
Whatever products derive from these collaborations, I think they'd like to own a little piece of. But this is not an economic play.
And we don't know what their business model is, City Move. And they may not charge anybody for the service. It may be advertising, for instance, and social media.
Find out, then it will be our decision as to whether or not.
Exactly.
And here's the really cool part of this, as far as I'm concerned. How many times have we had to sit up here and try to decide which consultant to hire and whether to hire a consultant and how much we're going to pay them simply by looking at a piece of paper and listening to a single presentation? This gives us an opportunity to see them in live action I don't think we've ever had this opportunity before we have to make any decision as to how to enter into a real business relationship that's going to cost us money. This is really unique.
And that's why a well-crafted but general agreement or a memo of understanding is the next step, because
But
we don't have those.
We sort of do. I think what Frank put together, which is a complete rework of what somebody had made a mistake and suggested and put it in the first time that we had it out here, which nobody could understand it.
Actually, it's what Doral signed, by the way.
What's that?
It's what Doral and Armando Cadena
Well,
signed.
I mean, that's crazy. I don't know why, I don't know why. how
You're saying
anybody-
Exhibit A is adjusted.
It doesn't say anything, but anyway, what Frank put together makes a lot of sense, and they're willing to accept it.
That's Exhibit A, what you
No,
what you
we
put
don't
together?
have it. It
Oh,
was-
okay, we don't have it, okay, okay.
It was,
Jennifer sent it yesterday.
She sent it yesterday.
The reason I wrote this because I said, what do you need? We came to understand what we're now talking about. What do you need? Well, they said, we'd like a piece of paper that says we have a relationship. Probably because they use it to market other communities, that we have a relationship with Key Biscayne. So I wrote this, and I showed it to the gentleman that spoke to us tonight, and he thought it was exactly accurate, exactly what they want to do. And there's no commitment, there's no confidentiality, there's no exclusivity. We can break up anytime, and we see where it goes.
Let's bring it back.
So can I clarify what we're looking to do with this group is to work with them or let them come and analyze our community and determine our problems, or we're going to give them the problems we want them to solve. They're going to go through an intellectual exercise that takes approximately 16 weeks. And then they're going to have teams that come up with solutions.
I thought it was 10 weeks, wasn't it?
Well,
I think he said 10 weeks today, and that's not what I got from him today.
no. And then, but this is what Frank and
It was about. I think that
Councilmember De
there's-
La Cruz are saying. Let me just finish I just want to make sure I understand. And then at the end of that, they're done. And there are two groups that have come up with ideas of solutions that we could choose to implement or not.
Pretty much.
Katie, I think two different things happened here. We were initially approached about, you guys are a great test market for these two concepts. And I think since then, there was a meeting and there was an exploration of what other things can you do for us. Those are the two things that you're trying to
I'm
work
not
with.
sure I'm comfortable with being the test pilot for one of those two entities that are businesses starting to get off the ground.
What I got tonight from him is that they have this process where they sit down and they take your whatever he called them, problem points, pain points, and they work the problem and they try to come up with a solution for you, whatever it is, mobility or otherwise. But what I got from him was, well, what we'll do for Key Biscayne is we've got these two things already, and we'll help figure out which one we think best suits you, and then you decide if you want to do it or not. Not that we were being offered the full service.
no,
I mean, I understand they may do that, and they may have said that to you, but that's not what he said
Well,
tonight.
but again, at the end of the day, it's us that determines, we determine
want.
whether.
But am I wrong in saying that we are pretty much the test pilot for Lime Bike? I mean, Lime Bike kind of tested off with us, right? I mean, this was their first.
We were the pilot in Miami-Dade
One of the
County or
pilot
in
communities
Florida.
in this
We were the
country.
first municipality in all the United States to have it, and the company was only open for maybe 4 months.
That's right.
I mean, and it was at no cost. It was at no cost to us.
Right.
I mean, I see this almost in the same way.
I totally do.
I do too.
And I think that's what Gary was trying to say.
To me, it's so clear. I mean, I know it's hard to impart it, but there's no downside. And we're not committing any money. We're not.
But I don't know what we're doing. I don't know if
Here's what we're doing.
And that's
Here's
can I
exactly,
say-
let me summarize.
Wait, Mr. Manager.
I have this, okay, folks, please?
Okay.
It's not the first time we've done this, council's correct. I worked with Lewis on Optimus on more than one occasion. We did get involved with Lime Bike. I know what I think you're looking for. I will meet with them as early as I possibly can. I will get a better letter of understanding. We will
Thank
put
you.
together a proposal or at least a memo of understanding and get it to you on February 27th.
Perfect. That's the
Then we
great,
can
that's,
have these the furthering of this conversation.
Where are you going with
that
that?
sounds good. Any more discussion? Can we go on to our next item?
You could just say be quiet. That's all you have to say.
Next,
I mean, that was a
Next-
nice way of putting it, but.
next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing the village manager to issue a work order to the Cordino Group to perform an evaluation and appraisal report and providing for an effective date.
Move.
Second.
Mayor and council, if I may, it is recommended that the council approve the attached resolution authorizing the manager to issue a work order to the Cordino Group to perform the evaluation and appraisal report in the amount not to exceed $19,000. The evaluation and appraisal report, or as shown here, EAR, is a periodic analysis of the goals, objectives, and policies as set forth in the village's master plan and is required by law. The state of Florida requires each city to produce an evaluation and appraisal report every 7 years. The Village of Key Biscayne's EAR is due to the state on July 1st, 2018. The EAR evaluates each element of our comprehensive plan and suggests amendments to the plan if warranted. Once the EAR is submitted to the state and they accept the report, the village has 1 year to complete any amendments that were attached. This is the first cycle of the EAR process for Key Biscayne after the state growth management laws have changed. Therefore, the minimum requirements to the comprehensive plan need to be brought into compliance with the new state laws. Attached with my memo and the resolution is the scope of work that was offered or proffered by the Cordino Group. You had at your dais seat this evening a supporting document which shows the actual expenditures for the $19,000 that they're requesting. And with us tonight is one of the individuals that are involved with this, Ms. Scarlett Hammonds, and she's here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions? Yes, Katie.
Could you explain a little bit broader the data collection process? Because I see that it's going to take about 20 hours, and I just wanted to understand that.
Actually, 50 hours.
Welcome.
Yes,
Thank you. Good evening. Get this closer.
Oh, 30 hours, 20 plus 30. Yeah.
The data collection will be basically to go ahead and update some statistics that have changed over time, population projections, addressing issues that your city is currently facing that are very specific to you, such as your discussion about kiteboarding and how that is an issue with your city, and mostly just getting updated data that you can get from the census and from the state agencies in order to update what is pertinent to your comprehensive plan and all the different elements in it.
Are there parts of the data collection that occur in our historical records of Key Biscayne as well? I mean, you mentioned the kiteboarding, but that's not a state issue or a census issue.
No, but in some ways it's important to look at the local issues. So that was just an example of a local issue.
John, I have a question in terms of the process and the timing. We wanted to add a master plan concept for parks and public places. Does this come later in the process? Do we have to include this in this cost estimate, or is it something that comes later? Or how do you envision that happening?
No, this is a.
No, I know.
I would not suggest that you introduce anything that's not mandatory
Got
in
it.
this process. Okay.
So we get
If you've
this and we
got a-
move forward.
If you've got a
Got it.
concept for parks and stuff, great, do it.
No
This is
comment,
strict. This is a strict compliance with rules and statutes, and that's all you should do.
And
Don't
Steve,
all-
I understand that, but we had been waiting on doing something until after the year. So
Yes.
I'm just please tee that up for the next step somehow.
Great.
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
What is,
Yes,
with the gutting of this chapter 163, what's left to comply with as the minimum compliance for us? I get the data collection, and we need to do that. There's other things we probably might want to do as a matter of our own volition. But is it just flood risk? What's left?
It is anything that's changed in state statutes, and we will review your current comprehensive plan and what has changed in state statutes since that was adopted, and state how we need to address those in your updates.
The whole concurrency thing has changed. The whole thing has changed. I don't know what's left.
Well, that's what they're going to go through and identify.
Right. There's been a number of growth management laws that have changed over the years. So we look at everything since your last adoption and what changes each year. And we provide a spreadsheet, a chart to document each change to the growth management laws and how they are affected with your particular comprehensive plan.
Good.
So flood risk. And by the way, because concurrency is gone in the state law or the regulations, doesn't mean concurrency is gone for us, because concurrency is part of our.
You can
Correct.
continue to.
Correct.
Yes.
That's always been our.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, good luck. I
thank you.
think the scope of work is exactly right. I think it's a very disciplined budget, and let's do it.
Are we going to be adding tab 7, the support document, into this resolution that we had on our?
Yeah.
And I hope it didn't go up $75.
Everything we do.
Somehow the price went up a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe to print the paper, right?
Yep, we will.
All right.
We'll make it part of it.
And we'll adjust it to 19,000 on their fees.
Mm-hmm.
Please call the question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you all. I look forward to the project.
Thank you.
Next item is a resolution of the Village Council of the Village of Key Biscayne, Florida, authorizing the village manager to issue a work order to EAC Consulting, Inc. for engineering and design services relating to the K-8 sanitary sewer system infrastructure, relocation, and extension, and providing for an effective date.
Second.
Mayor and council, as part of the ongoing efforts geared toward the implementation of the Stormwater Master Plan, the village, in cooperation with Miami-Dade County Public Schools, will install a stormwater pump station at the K-8 Center. In order to facilitate the installation of the pump station, which is scheduled for the summer of 2019, it is necessary to design and relocate a new gravity sewer main extension for connection to the WASA-maintained system along West McIntyre Street. The proposed location of the pump station is currently a sanitary sewer maintenance access structure. The relocation project is anticipated to occur during the summer break of 2018. I have with us tonight Mr. Eduardo Garces and Mr. Huntley Higgins from EAC to answer any technical questions you may have. Gentlemen, please. Thank you. Mr. Huntley.
Good evening.
Hi. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you for having us here.
Katie.
Hi. I had a question that may show you how much I don't know about these types of things, but I didn't understand why we needed to locate the pump there and why it couldn't be put somewhere else, that we didn't have to move a portion of our sewer line.
So what you have right now, you have an existing structure that collects sewage, and there's a
Yes.
pump external to that pumps to a gravity system outside in the McIntyre gravity system.
And the pump is specifically for the sewer,
And the pump is
correct?
already there, yes, correct.
For the sewer?
That is correct. And so
Okay.
what we're going to do is we're going to essentially relocate around that structure, so that structure no longer receives sewer. So it's just going to go directly from the school system directly into the McIntyre gravity system. That structure that's now going to not have sewer anymore is going to be hopefully part of the stormwater master plan, will now be a holding area, if you will, for stormwater.
Okay, so we're repurposing the pump.
You're not, you're repurposing the structure, the old pump station.
Yes.
Structure, concrete structure.
Right.
You're repurposing that for stormwater. So we have to get the sewer out of it.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, so there's an actual benefit to putting it in that location.
Absolutely.
Because that pump existed beforehand.
Right.
Okay, I did not understand. And then I did have another question. I mean, this contract that you put in front of us, I actually read, and this isn't relevant to you getting the job or not, but there's so many typos, and I mean, there's sentence fragments that I found that seemed like it was difficult to just know what you were doing for us, and I mean, it just wasn't read that clearly, in my opinion.
I'm
And
sorry.
also the timeline needs adjusting, because you're proceeding on January 24th, which obviously is already passed. So I would have preferred a tighter document.
Okay.
'Cause
Yep, we can make those provisions.
An example is under background, the second paragraph. It's just not a sentence, and it's impossible to determine what it is that's communicating there.
Second paragraph,
As
first page.
part of ongoing efforts geared towards blah, blah, blah. I read it several times.
That's it.
Couldn't find a sentence. in
Purpose
there.
But Katie, I think you asked the two questions as well.
You know,
And,
I told you
well,
earlier.
I think,
Essentially, this is part of the implementing the stormwater master plan, and this is kind of an enabling project to be able to get that work done, so to speak.
and you're retrofitting something that was previously done to find more efficiencies and to
Correct.
address the flooding.
Correct.
With that, call the question. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
No, don't worry. Thank you very much for your patience and for coming out.
Next item under reports and recommendations, finding balance with collaborative approach on village projects. Mayor Lindsay.
Sure. I had two different elders approach me at different times about council and what's working and what's not working. And I thought I'd share their words of wisdom with all of us, especially as we start transitioning to a new manager, and we will soon have a very new council. And one of the concerns was, and one of them has been in charge of a lot of companies, is just words of caution to not create silos, that we are a collective body, we're a representative body, and while it's good to work on individual projects, it seems like we're all resident experts on something, yet we're not. And so I just thought that was interesting and worth just thinking about, and how do we move forward. And one of the things that he suggested is we are underutilizing the manager, and perhaps we should be thinking as we, move forward with the new manager and stuff to kind of put those powers where they belong. So just, we've all been thinking about this, and I think our community's thinking about it also, so I wanted to share that. That's it. Any?
Next item is a status update, 12-24-month council set priorities directives. Mayor Lindsay.
Sure. Now, this is something that it has been done for a couple of years, and I don't think we're utilizing it, and staff is utilizing it. And part of the idea, again, is to come up with good processes and information at our fingertips and guides. And Katie, you brought up the strategic planning and how we incorporate it. This is part of the strategic planning, as is our CIP, as is our a couple of other documents that we have. And so maybe what we are missing is one master document that contains all these different working documents and I think it's something that, again, is good for a new council and is good for a new manager as a roadmap. And so this is why this is here. It's out of date. It needs updates. And if you all want to share it, but also thought was, how do you feel? And I think because different council members have touched upon this at different times, is this an opportunity to create a collective master document that includes all of these? Again, also going towards that strategic plan that fits into our into our budgeting process. And I know, so that's just discussion and possibly a couple of next steps. Yes, Katie.
First of all, thank you for putting this in the packet. It was helpful to me, and I wasn't around for when this was put together. The other thought that I had was that I would like to propose to all of us that we have a roundtable workshop that uses this as an I'm not coming up with the right word, but to guide us, I guess, to have a discussion, a budget workshop, a roundtable discussion with our manager and his directors and whoever else should be at the table. It will be open, maybe at the BZP planning room. I'd like to schedule a date that we could do that soon, prior to numbers being put on paper, and we can have a discussion about goals for just this next year.
Would you like to do this in March or April? I think it's an incredible idea. March or April?
March.
March?
if we can.
March? And how do you all feel about if we could impose on Jenny? It's unfortunate that we haven't been using this or something, or haven't used this as a starting point. Getting all of these documents together as a master starting point that, you know, when we have a new council member, they get this booklet of all kind of these the 2020, you know, plan, this.
I mean, that may be one of our goals.
That is one, okay, fair enough.
But just have,
Do you want a prototype for that meeting?
I think we just need to have an open discussion.
Okay.
And I don't, and it has to be related, how these goals relate to a budget, what the village is working on. And so we can learn from both sides to come up with a plan of how to start our budget process.
I totally agree. I think we're talking about two different things.
Okay.
But I'm so on board with what you're saying.
Should we do this now, or should we wait for a new manager?
No, I think
No,
we
we
need
need
it
to do it
now.
now for the upcoming budget that's going to
Yes.
come before us in June.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You mentioned the planning and zoning conference room, but is that big enough, one, for all of us and the directors? And also, this has to be an open public meeting, so I
Yeah,
think
it
we have to
does.
be conscious about maybe where we have it to
Do
make
we
sure.
want to do a table here, set it up, or in the community room?
That'd be fine.
Might be
That's
better.
a great idea.
That is a great idea.
I'd like it to be somewhere less formal than here.
Yeah, well, yeah, where we can all sit together.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that sounds great idea.
And
And
to
again,
your point, Lucho, I think one of the really important reasons of having this is then it gives us something to tell an incoming manager too. And we'll have had a discussion with all the people
Where we've
in
set
play.
our goals for the budget, to budget around our goals, to set the goals first.
Who would be running the meeting? Would the manager be the one in charge to make sure that flows? Because it seems like there's a lot of people at the table that run this meeting
For
smoothly.
tonight's discussion, it can remain with me.
Okay,
Maybe another presentation before then that may cause a further discussion, but I've
fair
got it
enough,
for now.
fair enough. And I think that the separate thing was just about having one collective document, just as a starting point of all these documents that you haven't seen before.
So should we come up with a date?
Yes,
I think it's a great idea for incoming.
for an incoming council and for an incoming manager.
Yeah.
So we'll try to put something together just for your review.
How many if you'd like, I can circulate dates, but how many hours were you thinking of?
Probably 2 or 3 hours. 2 hours?
2 hours, I think.
2 hours.
You think?
If I may, because I probably have some institutional knowledge about the documents you're making reference to, if it's your desire to become a little bit familiar with such things as the application and the book process for the Safe Routes to School or whatever we're doing, you're going to want to go through those very, very briefly, but at least have an understanding, because we're probably looking at 20 some odd different documents. My recommendation would be this to be about
I think there's two different things we're talking about. Katie really wants to start with this document and almost do kind of business strategic planning and where we want to go, whether it's CIP or projects or direction. What do we want to give as direction to our directors? This is what, and I'm ad-libbing, Katie, but that's what I took from what you were saying. So that would be kind of our open discussion.
I'm using this as basically a way to state that I think we should have an actual budget workshop prior to
Yes.
putting numbers on paper.
Yes.
This is
That's all.
the strategic planning that goes into the budget.
No, this
we
is-
talked
this
about
is-
this meeting.
Yes, yes.
So that rather than just getting numbers from department heads.
We're giving
they
direction.
get input from us as to.
Correct.
Some of the things we'd like to see them do.
And they give us input also on how, maybe there's roadblocks we don't understand. So we have that open dialogue.
And maybe we can address them. 4 hours?
It's really not.
It's a weekend.
The strategic plan sits above all of this, so it will be referred to,
Yes.
but this is more about
Yes.
exactly what you're saying.
Have like a little outing over a week.
Well, folks, and it was a place marker so this worked out.
Yep.
Thank you.
So
I can circulate dates and see what works well for everyone, and I'll go based on 3 to 4 hours, maybe 3 hours. Be safe.
I was gonna ask you all, I don't know if this is the right time, probably not, but I'm gonna be in the National League of Cities, March the 11th through the 14th. And I was hoping that maybe you guys might consider changing the March 13th meeting date, if at all possible.
Change it to when?
Should we do the next week?
I'll do it anytime you all want, except for the 11th through the 14th,
It's
and
the
I
only
can't be here.
meeting in March.
I know the last
Fine with
week of
me.
March is not good because
Yeah, I'm gonna
school's
be
out.
traveling. It's spring break.
So a lot of people are traveling.
What about March 20th? That's the third week?
Why do we only have one?
Because of
The
of
tennis.
When is the tennis this year?
11th through the 14th is when I'm
No,
sorry.
the 17th through or the 20th.
It's the following week.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So then do we want the 6th? Or is that too close?
Is the 20th during the tennis?
Yes.
It is the 20th, so we have to go
Yes.
maybe backwards.
Well, we are already meeting on the 27th of February, so then the 6th would be the following.
What about the 6th for the workshop and the 20th for the meeting?
I don't know that I'll be in town. I had already scheduled.
I have to check on the 6th.
Yeah.
I might
Okay.
not be here.
All right.
Can
Well, we could
we-
do that on the 8th or something.
Can we leave it for the 13th, but try to change it so that we don't miss the meeting, but we will try to accommodate you?
What's that?
I'm concerned about changing it. We've made travel plans for the end of the month because I worked around this.
So let's just pick a day when everybody.
But we're trying to.
She's going to have to get back to us.
Yes.
Okay.
That's all. But
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
the rest of us.
please, I really appreciate it. I don't like to miss. Thank you.
I'll circulate an email on both items tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Then, next item, biodegradable dog waste bags, Councilmember De La Cruz.
Okay, so
Yes.
hang on just one second. Let me.
They're not? They were supposed to be.
Where did they go?
They were supposed
I
to be.
thought they were too.
They told us they were.
They're not, though. They're not. That's the first thing that I looked into before I wasted time looking into this.
It
They were
even
supposed to
says,
be.
on the one on the sidewalk on Harbor Drive outside of the yacht club, even says on the bottom of it, biodegradable.
They sold us that. I mean, that's what,
False advertising.
well, we may have changed the product and not know about it.
We didn't love the product. There's a better product, but we invested in the dispensers, the little boxes, and that was, I understand, the only product that fit the box. There's a better product at Key Colony by a lot, and it's biodegradable.
So here's, let me just give you some numbers so that we understand how important I think
You
that
want
this.
those numbers, Joe?
I think philosophically, I completely agree with you.
I'm not going to talk about the
Thank you.
constituents. Okay, so.
How many?
So I,
How many pounds?
so I asked about, how many bags we buy, because, the number of bags we buy is more or less a starting point of this particular subject. And last year, we bought 172,320 bags.
Wow.
So I think that's too little, to tell you the truth, because when I did the math, assuming a dog uses 2 bags a day, I'm not going to say poops, uses 2 bags a day, that computes to less than 250 dogs. And I think we have more than 250 dogs in the village.
But people don't use them.
A lot of
Which is
people
another
use,
problem.
a lot of people use the Winn-Dixie bags, which we are trying to get rid of, and I used to use the Winn-Dixie bags. I don't anymore.
And a large number don't use any at all.
So it's a very, very serious issue, especially for us who like to, drum up the thing about sustainability and other things. Derek's going to be looking into it for the next time we meet. He didn't have time to do it for this meeting, but I really do think we need to. I mean, that's a lot of
We're
bags.
all in agreement.
That's a lot of bags.
We all agree.
Because look, if you take a bag and you do 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches, that's 8 cubic inches. You multiply that by 172,000 bags. That's a huge amount.
Can you give us a chart? I want to see this on a chart. I want to see a presentation
Okay, so I
next
convinced
meeting.
you all. Okay, so
we need
let's-
visuals of this.
Let's really look into
You had us at hello, okay?
It's a very,
can't
we're all
visualize
laughing,
this.
but it's a
No,
very
no.
serious.
But we all totally agree with you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And how did you figure it out?
We do.
I don't know how you can keep a
One
straight face and
afternoon,
say
I
this
didn't
is a
have
serious
anything else to
issue.
do, and Jennifer helped me, so we
He's
did
an engineering major.
it. It was fun. It was actually fun, but I have,
He sent out Jennifer for research.
Jenny doesn't think
It's a
while you're
serious
behind.
issue, guys. Come on,
It's a very
behave.
serious issue. And I
Behave.
can't believe that the dispenser says biodegradable.
I
and
feel
it's-
duped.
we need,
I really do.
we need biodegradable bags. We need to do everything we possibly can to
Okay,
find.
who's buying the bags right now, and can we just ask them to get biodegradable?
I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's
done.
great.
That's-
Solution oriented.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucho.
Follow-up on Key Biscayne Schools Address Verification Initiative, Mayor Lindsay.
And this, again, was just a placeholder. The kids are about to get accepted. We're going to have some issues. Let's get in front of it. We started the address verification idea in the beginning of the summer. We have yet to take action, but I think we got our chair's attention, and that's all we needed.
And I just would add
Allison.
one thing to what
Yes.
Mike said. It's my understanding from talking to the school district that the school of choice office actually does the verification for the new applicants, that what we're looking for is to figure out how to help them to add the additional step of address verification each year for children that are staying.
Good. Yes.
Has our manager been in contact with the school board of, I remember we had a contract in front of us with certain amount of money for a part-time, a full-time, and we were kind of shocked by that.
We took
And then
that,
nothing's ever
we
happened.
gave it back. We
Give it
told the
back.
EAB and,
Yeah, we-
and the principal that we weren't going at this level, and that's the work that's been put into it up to now.
Yeah, we gave it back to the AAB, who's met and negotiated and
Okay.
gone back and forth, and they have a new document, but they haven't met yet to decide whether or not it's worthy of bringing back.
Excellent.
Okay, if we're focusing on the people that are already there that have potentially left the island and no longer are eligible, is it in the agreement that if we find out they're gone, that they would actually have to leave the school?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's some people who were never here, but who just
That
kind
maybe somehow slipped through but yes.
Okay.
so that's it.
Next item is status of mini Zork committee, Mayor Lindsay.
Yes, as a reminder, we've created an ad hoc committee for Mini Zork. I know that it's time sensitive, and so let's try to, if you have ideas or people who have approached and people who are interested, but please just make your recommendations through Madam Clerk.
Did we do that? I don't remember. Did
Not
we?
the right, we have not appointed.
I don't oppose, because I love committees, but I didn't know that we reached a decision on that.
Yes, we did. Jennifer looked at the meeting.
But what's the difference between an ad hoc and a village council committee? I thought an ad hoc was not like an appointed one, but somehow we put
Sunshine.
something together quickly.
Not by-
Sunshine.
Not
Yeah.
by legislation.
But we're not appointing anybody. It's,
Yeah, I thought
if
the
we
idea
appoint them,
was-
then they're going to be within the sunshine.
For example, you have it before you, the people that were members of each of the prior Zorks, 2000, 202, and 206. Those names are, well, they include Barry Goldmeyer, Arturo Arbe, Mario Garcia, Sarah, Julie Alvarez, Jose Ortega, Willie Baroto. I expect they'll all want to participate.
Right. Well, Jennifer, which were our ad hoc committees that you came up?
Ad hoc committees that were not by legislation were
But were
AED,
appointed?
the sustainability, and the dog park.
And the dog park.
And
And they
there's
were,
a landscape committee too.
The landscape.
well, the landscape is a manager.
It's under the managers.
It's not ad hoc.
Not.
But the point is that it's still, there's an opportunity to at least formally let people know this is happening and do a scheduled meeting schedule.
And
It
how
has to- it
would
has to
they?
be-
It's a sunshine.
It's always,
Yeah, this is a sunshine, just so you
You
know,
guys
you're
are
not
both-
avoiding a sunshine issue by calling it ad hoc. If this is a group that
Yes.
is formed and is going to be part of a decision-making process, whether it's just a recommendation, this is a sunshine board. You need to have them with minutes and notice and everything else.
Yes.
So somebody's,
But it could be an informal group that has nothing to do with, directly with us that are builders, architects, and land use attorneys that could get together and give us input of what they think that we're coming up with.
That's right, but that doesn't sound like what
But
you're
that's what I
doing
thought
here.
we were at the last one. And I just want to be clear, again, I can go either way. I just, and you know, I think your concern was making it so much longer than it really needs to be. That's
Well, we even
kind of a
talked about
mini-
having 5 people, but we did want to act quickly.
Yes.
Okay, and we did, and we are bound by sunshine, and so the idea is, let's identify, we said 5, so we're identifying 5 people. It's always open, a lot more people can participate, but let's get the ball rolling. Let's
So should
not
we do a formal group then, and 5 people, and,
we
and
can-
put it together?
On
Yes.
the list that you have, how many people were on that list? Bosch is no longer, Bosch.
No, she's passed away.
But
I
everybody.
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And Rob DeCesspis, he doesn't live here anymore.
Can you circulate that list, please?
Thank you, Ben. Doesn't live here anymore. I didn't know that. I didn't know
So
that.
Brett, there seems to be people who've moved away or moved on, as it were.
Sure.
I mean, is it, we can't, if all.
But there's new blood also that has asked to participate. I mean, this was, come on, we can't be
No, the idea
drawing
was
on our team from 15 years ago.
the idea was to be global, but if these people wanted to
People
participate,
have actually asked to participate who.
there's a lot of people that
Yeah,
want to
so-
get involved in things, and we
So,
should make available.
We need to. That's what makes this community great.
But to
So
limit a committee to 5 people excludes everybody who's over 5.
no, because it's still, they can participate, but if
The
you,
math.
Well, public can
It was-
participate no matter what.
The
So
public will-
Doesn't
exactly.
limit anybody, I think, there, and there would just be an advisory.
but if you want to take some kind of vote,
No, I don't want to.
Well, we really can't because we didn't notice it for a vote.
No, but
no,
what's the
as the committee take a vote or get some kind of majority, you kind of need to have a
What we
working group that then,
I wanted to have a methodology and back into who's going to actually do work and how. We don't have a methodology yet, but I really don't care, and I want the broadest possible participation.
Of course.
It's all going to be in the sunshine, so. But we need to have a methodology.
The question is, does there need to be a committee on this? Can it be that people come here and say, I like this, I don't like this, and we have a workshop or something with an open group, and we come up with something, and they voice their opinion at public comments?
As I saw it initially, and as I think we discussed along the way, until possibly last week, personally, I didn't think we needed a committee. I just think we need a public process.
Yeah, I think that, I would agree with that.
We're discreet. We have built-in, very precise knowledge about the things that we're going to be looking at. It's not what happened in 2009. So that was my view then. But as I say, I love people to participate.
I think if people are asking to participate and they have subject matter expertise, it would be foolish not to.
But when you
allow
appoint
participation.
5 people and everybody else is in a different category, then there's a hierarchical differentiation, and that's not what I thought we intended.
Yeah.
Well, I thought there
agree.
wasn't even a committee before. I think we've come a long way, and this is very productive. So,
I would say let's have a methodology invented next time, and let's figure out how we're going to do this.
can you please circulate the list that you have so that we can add to it? Because I think people need to be noticed, and they need to be reached out to, and we need to be inclusive. There are, people who've moved here in the last 5 years who are experts in this area and who've come before us and have asked to participate.
And we're talking in circles. The question is, are we going to appoint a committee, or are we going to have a process that will invite the whole world to participate and simply
Have
do
more
it?
participation through a process.
The idea is the committee is not limiting the public to participate. The public can participate at all times. And you're
Right.
saying that, why put a committee in between? It doesn't.
Because to a certain extent, if you don't ask people to make a commitment, they'll come to one of the meetings and you won't have, you may not have
If
continuity.
they don't want to come to the meetings, then they shouldn't be involved. I think that we make the public process,
If you make a commitment, then you're going to show up.
well, then you're forcing somebody to be involved.
No, not at all. You just,
Let me give you an
you approach
example.
it differently.
The reason,
Optional or a commitment. I mean, that's just a
There's a-
different mindset.
there's a big difference between 2009 and now. In 2009, there was a blanket delegation full stop, to a committee to work for a long period of time and report back periodically, leading at the end to an ultimate report that Brett has in his hands tonight that enabled the council to make a decision on a bunch of stuff.
Why don't you circulate?
That's not what we're
to
doing.
everyone? I think that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
is this the same that's on, this is a public record?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, it's the report.
No, it's not the report. Those were my notes. It's not the report.
This is
Can
a
you
report and
circulate
recommendations.
No, that's not the report that was part of
But
the.
do you mind if
Ah, okay.
Jennifer makes a copy and circulates it to all of us?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
meant that everybody should get that. That's
Yes, of
just
course.
Yeah.
More detailed than we were
I
ready to
think you
talk.
have it already I think you already have it, so she can send it out.
I think Frank sent it this,
No, that was something else.
so I don't have, so do,
Those are my notes. I'll send them to you and you circulate them.
thank you, Frank.
So what's our decision? So Frank, you feel there's no need for
I think what we're
full
doing is just,
committee to go into a room and do work and come back? You'd rather have us be the overseers of it, like a workshop or a series of workshops?
that's how I conceived it, but.
Yes. That's
I agree. I think for speed wise,
So we have
could do it.
the whole council doing this?
Yeah. I mean, we got to do it anyways.
So let's have the
And
whole.
then we don't limit at all public participation.
Well, it's the whole council. I thought it was going to be a smaller subset. And I thought you needed, it would be good to have some outside participation. But if we're doing it as the whole council, that's perfect.
It could be a smaller subset, but either way, we will have, if we're smart and lucky and market this correctly, we will have the same broad participation we always do.
So do we want to set meetings as a council, do it as workshop?
How many do you think?
There are going to make this efficient.
7 years.
This is technical, boring stuff of the first order of magnitude. If we're going to do this efficiently, some people have to get together, spend the time to read and analyze the 35 or some odd sections that are going to be implicated in this work, and be prepared to summarize and explain what they think, what the current conditions are, something about why the ordinance reads the way it reads, what it was intended to achieve, whether it actually worked in practice or it didn't, and make a recommendation. And that's going to include Sergio. If we do this, 7 of us, it will take 11 years.
Yes. And I think the original idea was that you and I were going to work with Sergio to try to bring back to council where adjustments can be. We can explain it. You guys can ask questions. We can adjust it. Why the public is coming and reading this openly, putting their suggestions into, and we develop something that can
That's what we
adjust.
thought.
Would you consider, because it's 2 of you, sunshine meetings with Sergio, so you're going to have to notice them?
That's
And if
fine.
you could put together agendas in case the public has a special interest in one of the sections of the
Yes.
code. I mean, that to me, that's where
That's right. That's
That's-
exactly right.
And then we come to,
but it has to be
workshop?
transparent enough
But
that
we'll have 2
people who come
workshops
in, come even during the one-on with the smaller subset, they come in, and then at the workshop, it's more global.
That's right.
But I think it has to be, you guys have to really have an agenda and be disciplined about that, and make sure that there is the ability to have input, even at that
Yes, yes.
base level.
Yeah, I would not want to do this without input. I mean, that's for sure.
I mean, first of all, we won't be able to do the preparation necessary to not dominate Sergio's rest of his life if we don't have an agenda, because we're going to have to prepare in advance of each agenda for the code sections that are going to be discussed at that agenda. The last Zork met in BPZ. It depended on the subject, but at any given time, members of the public would fill the room. They had to put seating in the back of the room at that Zork because it was mobbed, and everybody had a chance to speak. And everything that was discussed at those meetings were fed back to everybody who was there, who signed up on a sign-up sheet, and they all kept in touch. That's how it worked then.
And
So
we
something
really
like
want
that
to-
is-
We probably want to do notice, big notice for people. And whether they show up, that's okay, but it has to be more than just notice downstairs for the
course.
public.
We never can rely on just notice downstairs. That's not,
it's also noticed online now, too.
yes.
Yes.
You can even put it in an Islander or something like that.
So one of the things, as long as we're on a subject real quick, it is going to be an interesting challenge for us to describe to the public in a comprehensible way why what's at issue is at issue. In other words, what's driving the analysis and critique on specific code sections. We're going to have to frame that, make that up, and put it in the Islander and put it on the website. And that, hopefully, if we do a good job, is both, first of all, going to be accurate, but secondly, is going to, if you will, market the importance of why this is important work.
And personally, I would like to also meet with a lot of the people who are involved with this, like the architects, the general contractors, other, out and meet with them personally, you meet with them personally to get their feedback. So I think we should also go out and try to get, the people who really are involved day to day to also give what they see and what issues that they've had and where things can change. And we also bring that ourselves, not just waiting at a table in a room waiting for them to show up. I would be very proactive of going out there and involving them myself.
So as long as we're making a date for the signage stroll on Crandon, we had talked about, and we need Sergio's and Bill Fair's help with this, I think, looking at the FAR bonuses as built. In other words, selecting houses, so this is all in the single-family side on this issue, selecting houses that manifest the as-built result of an FAR bonus, and looking to see, okay, so what did we achieve? Is this what we intended by that bonus? Because here it is, it's built. And does that work? Is it perfect? Is it adequate but not perfect? Is it irrelevant? I think we'll find in some cases it's not really what we intended to achieve in terms of design at all. And there's reasons for that in history, but do you want to do that? Do you want to take a ride around on a freebie and develop a list of samples of what results because of these bonuses? Do you want to do that? I do.
I'll tell you.
Too.
We've also had, a string of individuals telling us as consequences, unintended consequences have popped up. So we should have at least a lot of that documented at this point.
And I have first-hand experience on houses that we worked on where it was counter to what the intent was. And those types of things should, be flagged and looked at and see if they can be adjusted.
So I assume that if we got together, we could develop a list, one element of which, by the way, is going to be the replication of basically the same design over and over and over again, differentiated only by detailing. That's happened.
Oh, yeah, it's still happening.
Right. So we'll do this. So when we schedule the stroll, let's schedule a freebie ride around or whatever, however we do it.
We can do them together.
We could.
Okay.
Optimist.
I mean, the signage stroll is 15 minutes.
Exactly.
I do it every day. I drive up and down Crandon.
Okay. So we have a couple more items.
Yes, it's just, I'm sorry, discussion regarding Public Works. Councilmember De La Cruz.
Yeah. I think this is a very important item that I want you all to think about. It's my impression that Public Works until now has been dealt with almost like a stepchild of our village, and I really do believe that Public Works and what Public Works means is as important or more important than anything else we have going here, and it has much more to do with the value of our residences and the value of our village. Presently, we have a vacancy in the Public Works Department, and personally, I would want you all to think about this because I believe the Public Works should have its own director, and as opposed to a supervisor or working under the Development Services Director. And we have the opportunity now not to fill that position as a policy decision,
or asked that it not be filled, and held back until we had a new manager, and had that manager give us feedback as to what they believe is the way to go with regards to Public Works. So, and I believe that we can probably fill that position on a temporary basis with a temporary person, as opposed to hiring another person that may or may not fit the bill to be a director at some point, and then give the new manager the flexibility of making that decision. And we really should look into this, because I personally think that our swale areas, our common areas, leave a lot to be desired, and I think we need to do a better job at that, and I think our Public Works Department should be responsible for that.
But isn't that kind of a scheduling and monitoring and reporting issue? And if you had certain schedules and certain, level of oversight, it would be done? And is there an argument that maybe what you want is 2 or 3 superintendents out and about and doing things and not one director? I'm just playing devil's advocate, but I think that is the managers. I mean, our managers.
I think
I don't know that having an opening for 6 to 8 months is a good idea either. I'm just
Why
thinking.
6 to 8 months? I'm not sure. Am I confused here? We're trying to hire a manager in a much faster track than that.
It takes a while to get acclimated, learn where you're at, and then go out and start hiring people. I don't think that it happens within 15 days of hiring someone new and at the end of the summer.
Okay, well,
That's
my idea.
I
feel very strongly about it. So I mean, you all can decide what you want.
Brett and Katie.
I agree. I think the Public Works Department can be a huge and very valuable. It is a very valuable section of our organization in the village, and whether this happens before or after a new manager, for me, whoever does take or fill that position, I think would be extremely important to find somebody who really knows project management on projects, especially when we have these big infrastructure projects coming in. Over the last few months, I've been working a lot with the City of Doral Public Works Department, with their director and some of the staff there, on a public-private partnership for a client that we're working on. And they have moved all their internal projects within their Public Works Department, and it seems like it's working pretty well, because these guys have worked they're engineers. They know how the pricing coming in, how to set up the time schedules, the Gantt charts, and to oversee these. And I know we have a smaller village than our village is much smaller than their city, but it seems to me, organizational wise, that maybe we might want to relook at that and say, should all of our projects kind of go through this department that's more centralized and aware of how to deal with the engineers and other project managers of all types of projects that come through our doors. John, I've never sat with you and talked to you about this. I mean, maybe we can sit and talk a little bit, because I need to understand a little bit more of how the organization. You might tell me it already does that. It might be, or the person that was there previously may not have that knowledge, and maybe that's why things weren't running smoothly. I know projects do go to different departments, but for me, when we are looking at this person, it would be very important for me to see that they have these types of knowledge, abilities, and other experiences.
Katie.
Okay. I would like, John, you to speak on behalf, because we did actually talk about Public Works, and if you could give us your thoughts, that would be great.
I'm not going to go very far. It's clear on what but I will support. It's going to be at least 5 months, Councilmember De La Cruz, until a manager would be in a position of making a recommendation or filling something. Yeah. I have a plan. I've had a plan. I've directed our new human resource director to come up with a job description that would take us to that level. I need things done now. I recognize that the undergrounding of utilities project is going to be a huge project where it's going to need somebody on the street every single day to make sure we're moving forward. I get it. But allow me to do ahead. I've already made some early comments and direction to a temporary fix. And I think that once I make that public, I think you'll understand why I'm doing that. And I'll work with the new manager just as quickly as we can, but I do believe the type of individual that we will be bringing in to oversee the Public Works Department, and I'm being careful on titles, needs to have a higher level of experience, training, KSAs than we had before. I recognize that. Ma'am, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's a good start.
Next item is Crandon Boulevard signage stroll. Update, Councilmember Pelters.
I just really wanted to bring this up to put a date in place, and this is following our workshop where we decided that we needed to take a look at the overall picture before we made decisions on our sign ordinance.
And I can circulate those dates tomorrow. The last item is under Village Manager, and it's council guidance for Incorporation Park.
Just very quickly, if I may, what you have in front of you, or you should have in front of you, is 2 pages. I would direct your attention to the second page. Up at the upper left-hand corner is the signage stating Incorporation Park over the pergola that was recommended back then. I also recall that there was conversation by this council about not necessarily at that time choosing a name for the park. You can see through the design process what they're trying to do. With the concern that you had, I am recommending that you go to the second picture down below. Let's just keep this a pergola, but something very, very genetic, something that ties in with the rest of the design of the park. Or you may choose this evening to go back and to develop a name, but what you currently have is something that I don't think that there was consensus of by this council when it was presented back in, I don't even remember, early last year.
Yeah.
Here, Frank.
I think we liked the concept of celebrating incorporation at that park, but I don't know that we wanted to call it Incorporation Park. So we wanted to have timelines and features and celebrate certain landmarks.
They're there. That's being part of what is being designed. It's just this pergola signage.
No signage. Less is more.
So can we go with the bottom? Thank you. I'm done.
No signage.
No, go ahead.
Just a quick question, because you have these colored.
Uh-oh.
Sorry. I just wanted to understand the other little pictures that are here and where those materials are incorporated.
This is just a design. We will be getting a more formalized and finalized design.
I think it's if you look in the bottom picture, there's like these little panels in there.
Right.
Has our designers thought about the issue with birds on top of pergolas and
birds?
Yeah, and being an issue with, droppings and all kinds of stuff. So, a lot of times you see these beautiful structures and then they end up putting little spikes everywhere. And it's like, do you want it to look like that? So maybe it's good to kind of, Todd, maybe look at that.
We have a pilot program for that. I didn't know it was bird droppings, but the pergola at 401 Hampton will serve as a pilot program.
Another pilot program, huh?
I'm a winner.
Yes, motion to adjourn?
Yes, do I?
Move.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.